Welcome, everyone. My name is Charles Zilman. I am the CEO and co-founder of Link Senior, and I'm excited to welcome everyone for our Activity Strong webinar, Programming for Purposeful Living, with Vicky Doherty. Excited to be with you, Vicky, and to this presentation again. Thank you for being with us. I'll formally introduce in a second. I just want to give a bit of background to people about our webinar. So, as background, Activity Strong was started by Link Senior, and we do this in partnership with NAP, NCAP, and Activity Connection. And the whole idea is to help elevate activity and life enrichment professionals and their discipline. As a reminder, we provide NAB, NCAP, and NCCDPC credits today. To receive the credits, you just need to stay on for the full session and then fill in the survey that you will be receiving by email. Now, as a quick note, given the size of the audience, you have until Friday to fill in the survey, and we will start sending them to you next week. So if you have any questions, feel free to direct them to webinars@linksenior.com. Now, the other quick note that I wanted to share is, as some of you are familiar, the chat gets very busy, so feel free, make sure to select everyone in the drop-down to make sure that everyone sees your valuable contribution. And if you have a question for our panelists today, make sure you direct it into the Q&A, not the chat, the Q&A. And I am just seeing that the chat is being disabled, and I will try to look into this as shortly as possible. Now, just to give you a bit of background, my name is Charles, as I mentioned. I started Link Senior 16 years ago, and our company is based in Washington, D.C., and we really believe that old people are cool in the sense that everyone is cool, including older adults. And then we obviously very much believe in enhancing activity and life enrichment and system living, which is why we started the Activity Strong platform. Our company, as I mentioned, is based in Washington. We are privileged to touch the lives of 50,000 residents across the US and Canada. And, you know, all of our work is to serve only one mission, which is to amplify the quantity and the quality of programming. We're here to help activity directors and life enrichment directors do what they love, which is to help residents find purpose every day. We're very proud of the fact that we are evidence-based. We did a clinical study that was published in a peer-reviewed journal. And if you have any questions regarding Link Senior, feel free to always contact us. Before I introduce us to Vicky, I wanted to share the fact that for me personally, I'm beyond excited about the session. I had the privilege to see Vicky present at the ICA conference, and I just feel that this connection between programming, purposeful living through the lens of the wellness model is just an amazing way to help improve the lives of our residents throughout the different levels of care. And so if you're not too familiar with what I just mentioned, the ICA is the International Council on Active Aging. And for years now, they have been promoting a model called the wellness model, which stems from the work of the World Health Organization. And so ICA has been promoting that in the field of aging. And you should feel free, obviously, to contact them if you have any questions regarding these audits. But there are wonderful ways to make sure that the experience we're providing our residents is as holistic as possible. And if you don't know what I'm talking about at all, when I talk about the dimension of wellness, talk about maybe some of the simplified version like mind, body, spirit. But it's this whole idea of trying to have a balanced experience. And Vicky is a part of that. You know, Vicky Doherty is the Director of Life Engagement for an organization called Action Retirement Communities, and she works with the Lanier Village community. And Vicky, I'll let you take it from here to introduce your presentation. But thank you very much for being with us. Very excited to be with you.
All right, let me share my screen here. Share screen. Okay. Everybody can see my screen. I'll go back to the beginning slide so we can get started. Okay. So thank you, first of all, Charles, for inviting me to do this. This has been a very exciting thing for me to prepare for, and knowing how many people are logged on and listening today is very exciting for me. So welcome to you all. So my program today is all about how can you plan programming for a sense of purposefulness in people's lives. Because as we know, life changes as we age. Our mobility changes, the roles in our lives changes. And so we have to modify programming to help people have that sense of purposefulness, especially as we continue to have losses in mobility, sight, hearing that might impact us being able to do the things we formerly did. So Charles did a wonderful job of introducing me. I am with ACT, retirement. And I've been with the organization for 12 years. I work in Lanier Village Estates in Gainesville, Georgia. And I've had the pleasure of working with all three levels of care. So in a continuing care retirement community, we have independent living, we have assisted living, assisted memory care, and we have skilled nursing. Our community is almost 600 people large. And so how do you continue to promote engagement and meaningful engagement as people cross that entire spectrum of care? So that's what I'm hoping to focus on today. So I'm going to do a little elaboration to talk a bit about who I am, but it comes with a purpose. So let me see if I can move. I wish I could move this little screen around so that you can see me a bit better. Okay, so as you can see by some of these images, you'll see a picture of a Nova Scotia flag. I am from Nova Scotia, Canada. I studied recreational therapy at Dallas City. In that internship process, I met my husband and now have a beautiful family with two wonderful sons. One who travels the country playing music while he does a side gig of some IT work for a company called Deluxe. And then I have my little guy. He's the one that's going to give me gray hairs. He is a personality larger than life, but he is such a great kid, and he's a wonderful baseball player. So he keeps me active with that. You probably also see me in my clown hat when we're masked up with COVID. So one of the roles I played is I was the cheermeister, I was the grocery delivery person, I helped people with their telemed appointments. So that was one of the roles I played. You'll see a picture of me with my sailboat. So when I turned 40, I took sailing lessons and I wanted to pursue that. And so I looked at joining a club. It was a hello.
Yes, you're back, Vicky, but we can't see your screen, unfortunately.
Okay, I hope that you can. Okay, good. I'm hoping that you can still see me. Okay, wonderful. And I think I'm still sharing screen.
No, we don't see your screen.
Let's try that again. My apologies. Okay, let me start that one more time and get back to screen sharing. My computer is just giving me fits today. From current slide. Okay, me and my slides. My screen share is currently loading. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Take your time. No problem.
All right. All right, great. Wonderful. And as you'll see, I don't know what this is. Okay. I have an extra little screen video. I'm not sure why I'm showing up twice. My apologies. Okay. So as you see, I'm also a competitor. I've done some competitive bodybuilding. Well, I'm not really here to tell you all about me. I just wanted to share these images with you because while, of course, this slide allowed me to introduce myself, it also serves to demonstrate how the roles we play in our lives gives us a sense of purpose and identity. Let me see. Are you still able to see me, Charles?
I see your slide, which is perfect. Yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Excellent. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. Sorry for the difficulties. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about aging and purposefulness. All right. So as we age, one of the things that happens during this phase in life, especially after the age of 65, where people typically retire, is we start looking back on our life and assessing our accomplishments. Did we live a life where we felt like we left a legacy? Did we live a life where we feel like we did things meaningful? Do we have a rich story to tell? So for any of you who studied psychology, there was a psychologist named Erik Erikson, and he initially developed 8 stages of psychosocial development. And in each one of these stages, he talks about us going through a challenge or what he identified as a crisis, and our ability to navigate that crisis would determine how well we lived through that phase of life. Well, as he developed his theory, he decided to add a 9th stage of psychosocial development, which encompassed people over the age 65. And at this stage, they talk about integrity versus despair. You know, did I live a life that I feel was fulfilling, or do I have regrets? Well, what does that have to do with us in the world of life engagement? Well, part of this is that we help them to write a story about what this end stage of life looks like. So you may have heard of something called narrative psychology. Basically, it's the story we tell ourselves about our life and aging. And it could be a story of decline. You know, life as we age can come with complicated health issues. It can come with changes in hearing, vision, mobility, loss of friends or family, loss of roles. So you could write that story as a story of decline. Or perhaps if you feel like you've lived an interesting life, it could be a biographical tale where you're sharing all of the experience that you had with the hope of imparting some knowledge about the life you lived and who you were to family and friends? Or could it be something more? Could it be a whole other chapter, or perhaps even a new book in a series filled with many more stories and many more experiences? And as we know, stories and adventures, they don't always have, you know, happy endings. So they're not always without challenge, but they add a richness to the tale. So we know that aging doesn't come without some loss. It doesn't come without some challenges, but this stage in life can be very rich, and you can leave a wisdom and legacies that can be imparted to future generations and the people around you. So there's a whole field now called narrative gerontology that's focused on reframing the lens through which we see aging. We were very privileged in our community to have Dr. William Randall speak recently, and he pioneered the field of narrative psychology or narrative gerontology. And he has written a number of books on narrative gerontology, which talks specifically about how we frame the process of aging. And so his books are focused on seeing aging as an adventure. And like I said, adventures are not always comfortable. Who's gone camping and has forgotten something or had to sleep through a rainy night in a tent? So while it may not have been easy, you had an incredible story and probably some lessons that came from it to share and to tell. And the same is true of aging. Okay, so before we hop into the next slide, one thing I would like to kind of put out there is, if you work in the field of life engagement, you know, we have a couple of roles we play. We can play the role of entertaining, which we often do, and there's a place for that, where we organize community events and concerts and social activities. And then we have the opportunity to engage. And engagement refers to helping people feel like they're living fulfilled, enriched lives. And so when we talk about, we go back to that first slide where there are pictures of me and all the different roles I played in my life. Our residents and the people that we work with, the older adults that we work with, have all lived very rich lives. All have lived very full lives before they came to live in the communities or but a role shift. So sometimes, we move away from our families. If we were a parent, those roles change because children are now adults, and we may grandparent, but that role looks different. We've had careers that we've retired from and stepped away from, and can be a big part of our identity. And so sometimes that helps to define who we are, and it can also, when there's the absence of that, pose a challenge to us in feeling fulfilled and knowing what to do with our time. We may have retired from a home that we, identified as our retirement home, the pinnacle to move into a retirement community. So there's a lot of letting go and change and loss. And sometimes as people transition into this next phase of life, moving into a retirement community, moving to a system, there's a lot of loss, a lot of transition roles. And so sometimes people don't know how to. I'm so sorry we're having such technical difficulties. More. Okay, we're going to share that screen one more time. Okay. So we're going to define vocational wellness. My screen share is loading once again. I apologize for the interruptions.
Vicky, don't worry. Also,
Okay.
I've been sharing the slides in the chat as well.
Okay, great, wonderful. So, when we talk about vocational wellness, as Charles referred to earlier, he talked about and they came up with a model of the dimensions, the 8 dimensions of wellness. And so those are intellectual, what we do to help stimulate people's intellectual wellness, physical, which of course are fitness programs, social, spiritual, environmental, emotional, and vocational. So when we think of vocation, often we think of our employment, but it can mean something more. Okay, so the word vocation comes from the Latin word vocatio, which means summons, which in turn comes from the term vocare, which means calling, what we feel called to do. Collins Dictionary defines vocation as having a strong feeling that you are especially suited to do a particular job or fulfill a particular role in life, especially one that involves helping other people. Vocational wellness refers to the ability to gain personal satisfaction from one endeavor. You're in the working world, but it can also come from volunteer work and things that you do to fill your time that bring you meaning. So, helping people find ways to use their skills, talents, and knowledge in ways that add joy and meaning to their lives allows them to feel a sense of renewed purpose. It adds to the story and creates the opportunity for our retirees to put their experiences, knowledge, and skills to work to create a new sense of meaning and purpose in their lives. It helps them create an opportunity to leave a legacy. So we're going to explore some ways in which I have harnessed this particular domain of wellness in my programming. Okay, so what I want to do is break this down across levels of care, because of course, how you're going to engage people and employ vocational wellness is going to look different based upon their skill set and what they're capable of doing. Because as we know, progressive aging, which again, that doesn't mean that even in those later stages that there are not ways where we can give people the opportunity to feel like they have purpose. Because at the end of the day, we all want to feel like our life has meaning and purpose. We like to contribute in some way, whether we can see it or not. Okay, so when I was thinking about each level of care, I thought about a quote, a statement that kind of encompasses where they're at this stage in terms of their ability to engage and where they're at with vocational wellness. So I think of my residents living in independent living. They've moved into a CRC. They've been retired probably for a few years before they move, but life has shifted for them. And they still feel like they have a lot to contribute. They, are still very active and engaged in their community, and they're ready to give. And while when they first move in, especially to our community, they enjoy that kind of cruise ship living model for a while. Once they've enjoyed the entertainment aspect of it, and they've enjoyed the not having to cook 3 meals a day, not having to, clean their house all of the time because they've got light housekeeping through the week if they choose that. Once that wears off, they're looking for a sense of purpose. And so finding ways to help them fulfill that is really what it looks like to help them keep engaged for me. So some programming considerations. When you think about people living in independent living, is thinking about ways that they can share their talents and gifts. The residents that live in my community, if they've been able to plan their lives to retire there, have probably had pretty interesting careers, travel experiences, life opportunities that they can take that information, take those knowledge, take those skills, and give them back to the community at large and employ them within our community. So volunteerism is one of the most obvious ways to promote vocational wellness. So you can look for opportunities within your community for residents to volunteer. Ways that we do that is we have a committee for every single department. My department, life engagement, I have probably 15 people on my life engagement committee, which we've broken down into smaller subcommittees. So I have a little task force that works on planning trips. I have a task force that helps me plan with entertainment. I have a task force that helps to plan with speakers. We have a program called Friday morning coffee, which we do every Friday morning. And I have a little subcommittee and they do all the coordination for that. So I try to create opportunities where people have giving roles where they can use their knowledge, skills, talents, and experiences from their career, or even, we have some people who have moved from 55 plus communities that were involved in their social committees, and they can bring great connections to the table. So it helps my programming, and my programming is their interest, because the entertainers, the speakers, and the opportunities we're bringing to campus, the travel we do is geared towards them and theirs because it came from them. So it makes sense. And we also work to foster community connections. So we bring in outside organizations like the local hospital that needs volunteers. We have a local community foundation that we have a group of people that helps to read applications for scholarships to help determine that. We have groups that go out and tutor other students in local schools and provide mentoring opportunities. And that really just looks like reaching out to your local community organizations and creating connections with them, inviting them to your community so you're residents are out. And again, they're independent folks, so a lot of them still drive. They're able to get themselves to their own volunteer opportunities if they're external to the community, but a lot of them like to do that. So we try our best to make those community connections so that they can use their skills and talents, not just within our community, but provide their talent, experience, and knowledge to the community at large. And we track our hours in our community as part of social accountability. The community produces at least 5,000 hours in volunteer. All right. We're just going to keep going. So I'm really glad that these are being shared with you. The chat as I continue to have some tech difficulties here. Okay,
Vicky, can you hear
so
me? Yeah.
so of course we do offer.
Can you,
Yeah, I can.
Vicky, can you hear me? Do you mind just saving your video?
Yes.
Maybe that would help. Yeah. We can see your
Sure.
screens now.
Let me. Okay, I'm going to stop video. Okay. Okay, you can still hear me clearly?
Yes, very well.
Great, wonderful. Okay. I am sharing my screen, but it's not moving. Okay. So we also create opportunities for our residents in independent living to your level. Look at opportunities in assisted living where residents may want to attend large community activities, need a friend to do that with, or somebody that can escort them and forth to community activities if they've got mobility issues or even memory loss. We have opportunities for our residents to volunteer in skilled nursing, to read. We also have in-house musicians that come together and they play concerts throughout the month for us. We have a chorus that's 40 people strong. And while the chorus in and of itself is a great engagement opportunity, they have concerts for us throughout the year. And they've grown so popular that they run 3 nights in a row. So not only do they get to engage in the opportunity of singing, something that they love to do in their own church choirs, in the community at large, but then they get to use that to serve the entire community. And we have special concerts for our students who may find it challenging to get to some of those evening programs, but we do an afternoon program and we pull in volunteers from all levels of care to assist them in getting there. And so, you know, and also we create opportunities for new vocations. So if residents come to me with a concern about something that is not happening in the community, an activity they would like to see, there are no problems in my department, only solutions. So if a resident comes to me and says, hey, you know, I think it'd be really great to do a car show. I'm part of this car show annually with my car. Can we bring that on campus? Sure. And then we work together to make that happen. In fact, we do that annually. We have a car show and food truck fest at our community. And that started because there was a resident who was part of a local car club who thought it would be great to bring it to campus. And they got to drive that train. Right now, we're doing an incredible thing that involves all 3 levels. Tell you about the levels. Really what it boils down to is getting to know your residents, getting to know what their interests are, what their careers were. And a great way to do that is, I don't know if any of you use something called a My Story or do any kind of interview when people move into your community, but take the time to read those, because you may discover that there's somebody who has a great talent that it could be used to serve your community and might add a whole other layer of richness to their newly retired life. We had one resident, a couple move in, and they really struggled with their transition to retirement community living and actually considered for that maybe this wasn't for them. And the pandemic hit, they stayed. But during that time, we needed so much help, with people. We were asking them not to leave. So we had to help get them groceries, help to get them medicine. And this particular couple hopped in. So I coordinated with my transportation department and the local grocery store. People put in orders. Our transportation department would deliver them to campus, and this couple would meet the bus and help deliver them. And all of a sudden, they realized that there was great purpose in volunteering, and it shifted their entire mentality about being in a CCRC, and they play an active role in a number of things in the community. So, I think sometimes, I need some help can be very powerful words that you can use to help engage people who may be, struggling with their transition to living in a CCRC or need to find a way to engage with other people or find a sense of purpose. All right, so moving on to assisted living. So when we think about assisted living, the people in assisted living have transitioned from living in their independent living homes, whether they're coming from an outside home into a freestanding assisted living or a CCRC like mine. Somewhere along the way, it has been identified that living independently is a challenge due to changes in physical mobility, cognition, the ability to maintain a home independently. So they've moved to assisted living. But most times in assisted living, even though there may be some deficits there, whether that is, some mobility or hearing, vision, cognition changes, the residents that I see in assisted living are still very active, and they would probably say, yes, life has changed for me. I may not be able to maintain a home anymore. Aging has maybe impacted me in some ways, but I still have value. I still have something to give. I still have purpose. And so how do we create that opportunity for people who may start to be experiencing some deficits, but still have so much to give? So finding opportunities for people to lend a hand. Like I said, I need some help. 4 very powerful words. If you are challenged with participation and engaging people and having them come to programs, I need some help. Powerful words. Even if I need some help with handing out flyers, people arrive, programs arrive. I need help with somebody just greeting folks as they arrive. Because as we know, if we worked in assisted living, sometimes getting people to come to programs and stay, if you're the only person, getting people to programs can be a challenge, kind of like herding in. People get there, program doesn't start right away. So they may be like, well, I'll go check on this, that, or the other, and you may lose participants. So even just the role of being a greeter and engaging people while you're waiting to start a program, maybe you need some refreshing. I need those are very powerful words, especially when you're working with people in assisted living. You might run a cooking club and you might hear, you know what, I spent my whole life cooking. I don't really, that's why I moved here. So I don't have to cook anymore. But if you say, I need help preparing food for an event, you might hear something very different. Like, you know what? I used to cook all of the time. I would love to help you with that because it no longer feels like a chore. It is something that you're doing to serve other people, and it's validating. So finding ways for people to lend a hand, finding roles and responsibilities for people. So you may have somebody who likes to deliver the mail or helps with delivering calendars each month, and find that thing that they like to do with giving, and neighbors know that that's their role, and it helps them feel very validated. So one of the great things that's happening in our assisted living is we have a gentleman who loves opera. and he was talking to some of his neighbors and realized that there was a number of people who really liked opera. And he decided to start opera in Oak Ridge. So in our communities across Axe Corporation, all of our assisted livings are called Oak Ridge Terrace. So he decided to do the opera at Oak Ridge, and it has grown in popularity. That still maintains contact with, and he has pulled them in to participate. So not only do we have people from assisted living enjoying his weekly opera at Oak Ridge, but it's grown in popularity so that now folks from independent living are crossing that border, which sometimes we have a hard time, once people cross into a new level of care, maintaining those connections. They're coming to assisted living to watch opera. And so it fosters community connections. It gives him something to look forward to each and every week that he's able to facilitate this. Okay, I have lost you again.
Vicky, we can hear you, but we can't see your slides.
Okay. All right. I am so sorry that we are having such technical difficulties. I really, as we ran through this morning, we really didn't have this issue. So from current slide.
I think the audience is patient and grateful for your time.
All right. Okay, so are you able to show my slides through I'm trying to screen share and I can hear you. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Let me see. All right. I'm trying to screen share again. Are you able to see my slides yet?
Not yet, but it's probably coming.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I'll just continue to speak as we wait for that to load up. Let me see where I'm at in my Zoom. Okay, here I am. And so as I was saying, we have a gentleman that runs this opera program, and he's just had a wonderful time planning it each month. So not only does he get to show something that he enjoys showing, but he spends a number of hours throughout the week what program he's going to want to show next. And he's talking to his neighbors about what they would enjoy. And so it's become a whole passion project for him. So it has given him a great sense of purpose and direction and joy. So finding those opportunities, looking at people's interests, giving them an opportunity to share their skills, knowledge, and passions. We also try to pull residents into planning and organizing events on our campus. Okay, let me see. Meeting. This is very interesting. So let's see. I'm going to maximize this. You're still not seeing my slides?
No, we don't see your slides, unfortunately.
Okay,
but
hold on.
I've been sharing it, so yeah, I've been sharing
Great.
them.
Okay, I think I figured it out.
Yeah, we can see them now.
Oh, yay. Okay. Again, I'm so very sorry for the technical difficulties that we're running into. Okay. All right. Again, skills, even though they may have had some changes in mobility. So for this gentleman, you know, the only help he really needs is setting up chairs. So each time he plans this event, he sends out invitations, he gets RSVPs, and then he communicates to staff about the number of seats that he needs set up for this. So as you can see, a great deal of planning goes into it. It's very fulfilling for him. And again, it creates opportunities for residents to be engaged on a level. If you find that thing, and give it to them. You know, my philosophy is everything I do for you, I take from you. So it's great for me to provide, you know, great social programs and entertainment, but is that going to add meaning and richness to their life when perhaps giving them the opportunity to lead something that they're most interested in is going to give them more fulfillment and purpose? We pull residents into all levels of planning and organizing, whether it's simply telling us what trips that they would like to be on in assisted living, or helping to organize things. This was fantastic. It happened just a couple of weeks ago. There was a lady who turned 102. And we decided we wanted to do a day for her. And so it was a great conspiracy. All of her neighbors and friends, you know, were able to hold down the fort and not tell a single thing. Not a single thing slipped out. And she was completely surprised. And for those of you who work in assisted living, you know that that is a great feat. And it was a tremendous party. And they did all the organizing. So they decided what food they wanted to have, which we just put, you know, banquet orders in or purchase them themselves. They helped with the decorations. They made the party favors. So, you know, for everything we're doing in the community, finding what they can do. So it's really, you know, you're very much focusing on what we can do. So we already know there's going to be limitations. Fine. Yeah, life comes with limitations. We're going to look at what we can still do and try to find ways for them to employ those skills. And of course, we create opportunities for peer support. So we have support groups in OBT where they just meet throughout the week and they talk to each other about things that are happening in life. And we encourage that. Okay, so this is where people really struggle with vocational wellness and how do I incorporate that into programming at the skilled level? Because as we move from assisted living to assisted memory care and skilled care, we're seeing, you know, greater changes in cognition. We're seeing greater changes in physical mobility. And so it's very easy to get caught up in looking at the deficits and programming for rather than programming with, because we're so used to accommodating people's limitations. But if you were to sit with somebody who lives in skilled nursing, even somebody who's in advanced memory loss, they would probably say to you, I am still a whole person. I am still me. So as we know, the residents that we serve lived a whole rich life before they came to us, even if in the end stages of memory loss. And so there are ways that we can help them feel like they have purpose and give them a sense of validation. So some programming considerations when we're moving to those later stages of care, such as skilled nursing, is opportunities to match their life achievements. You know, again, going back to reading those bios, intake surveys, and getting to know who they are. Maybe they had an incredible achievement, such as this gentleman you're seeing on the screen. He was a fighter pilot. And he had held on to a lot of memorabilia from his time, his career in the military. And he had an incredible bomber jacket. And those bomber jackets kind of became, you know, artwork and, you know, were often written on, painted on, and really spoke to what was happening at that time. And so he donated his bomber jacket to a museum, and there was a gentleman that did a whole, you know, coffee table art book about fighter pilots and in particular these bomber jackets. And so the man who wrote the book about this in our community, and he came. We made a big deal of it. We had the auditorium reserved. We made it one of our Friday morning coffee programs. We had probably about 100 people there. He was recognized for his service in the military and got a signed copy of the book. We did a display of pictures from his past. There was a newspaper article. So we were able to really recognize him. And even though he was in the later stages of memory loss, because he was being brought back to a place in his life that he was familiar with, that he had left a legacy in, we saw a very clear version of him for that hour. And it was a pretty incredible experience. So just getting to know your residents and looking for opportunities to recognize their achievement and celebrating their milestones, like that 100th birthday party. A lot of them have incredible collections of dolls, of memorabilia that they've had throughout their lives, giving them an opportunity to present them, share them, tell them, reminisce about past experiences. So reminiscence groups where you talk about, you may have a subject like, tell me about your, greatest achievement, or tell me about a really funny childhood experience. And sometimes those springboard into some really interesting conversations about life. Asking them questions like, for, somebody who's been married for 60 years, just asking the question, what was the secret to a fulfilling marriage for all of those years, and giving them opportunities to impart their wisdom. And whether you down and share it in an article or just share it in the context of a group. And we also create opportunities in our skilled nursing for giving and staying connected to the broader community. So one of the things that we do in our skilled nursing is, and I don't know if any of you have heard of this, but there's a program called Treat the Troops. And that's where you send care packages and baked cookies to troops abroad. And so we had somebody in our culinary department that tipped me off to this. She had somebody in her friend circle that was part of this. So we started doing a cookie baking group where I would pull in residents from skilled nursing, and we would bake and freeze and bake and freeze and bake and freeze each week until it was time to have a packing day. So there are people who, really enjoyed the baking of the cookies, and that may have required a higher skill level. But then there were people who maybe were at a lower skill level that were more than capable of helping us to package it up. So we may have a group come later when it's packing time just to count cookies and put them in. And then we may have a group that maybe even have more, profound challenges, but can help us put things in care packages. So we were able to break that activity down into several opportunities for giving. And these all may be things that you're already doing organically, but maybe not purposefully thinking about it. And it's a great opportunity for expansion. I think that vocational wellness is one of the most looked over domains, because again, we all want to feel like we have value and purpose. And so really looking at the things we do and analyzing and looking for opportunities for them to be a giving opportunity, because we all know that when we give, we most often receive more than we can ever give just from having that experience. And then in the very end stages, somebody who may not even be verbal, who may be in a geriatric chair, and they can still feel validated and like they have a sense of purpose. One of the most powerful moments I've had was sitting with a lady. Her name was Marty, and she would come to music therapy, and she would tap those toes the entire time, but she was nonverbal and kept her eyes closed a lot of times. When they see dementia, sometimes that doesn't mean that they're sleeping. It means that they're kind of disengaging because, their brain is a hard time processing all the things happening around them. So they close their eyes as a way to kind of control that level of stimulation. But she was there, and, I sat with her and she held my hand, and it was just a day that I was having a tough day. And I was able to say to her, Marty, thank you so much for just being there for me today. You being present with me means more to me than I can, possibly convey in words. And just a simple act like that, helping people feel validated and like they have value in those later stages of life, and being mindful about finding those opportunities to do so. I have talked a lot, so I'm looking forward to the Q&A at the end. So moving on, another way for people to feel like they're contributing is by sharing stories and leaving legacies. But before we move on to that slide, I want to talk about one thing we're doing in our community that wraps all of these three levels of care together. So, you know, a great thing to do is try to find ways where your whole community can come together to serve. It helps us bridge the gap between levels of care. It helps us maintain communication between friends who have transitioned to other levels of care. So pre-pandemic, we, you know, a lady who's now, she's in memory care, and so we're doing it this year in her honor, started something called the Challenged Child Easter Egg Hunt. So there is an local organization that serves challenged children. And so we invite them on campus and we host an epic Easter egg hunt. We have over 1,000 filled Easter eggs. We have face painting. We have a pet therapy zone where residents who have very docile pets will come and allow the kids to pet them. We have a story time area. We have hopscotch, snacks, all of the things. Residents organize it. They each have task force. So we have some people that really have a theatrical, artistic side, and they run the storytelling. We have people who love their pets and want to share them, and they run the petting zone. We have residents that are artistic and happy to do the face painting. And we even have a drone egg drop. So we have a resident who has a drone, and he's designed this thing that can drop a couple of golden eggs out of it. So it is a huge deal. We have 50 kids come and their families. We have community members that have connections at a local church that they themselves coordinated a bus from the local church because we have parking challenges. So, you know, the kids will be bussed in with their families, and this is all resident driven. How do we pull in the other levels of care? We have an egg extravaganza. How do we fill those 1,000 eggs? We hand off 250 to skilled nursing. We hand off 250 to assisted living. And then in our independent living area, we're going to have an egg extravaganza social where people come and fill eggs for us. So it ends up being also because we know how much our residents in assisted and skilled care love seeing children. We then pull in volunteers that may not be helping with the coordination of the event itself to help escort people who want to come to the Easter egg hunt and watch the kids. So looking for those opportunities for us to give and serve and engage. Okay, now moving on to finding other ways to feel like we have a sense of purpose and leaving a legacy. We can do that by sharing our stories. This gentleman is Val. He is probably one of the most positive people I have ever met in my life. He was actually present at D-Day and lived to tell the story. And he wrote a book on how you can succeed. And he was able to have that published and shared. We have several people who have published poetry books, children's books. We had a lady who she traveled to Thailand, and her kids discovered these giant toads, and she had a background in arts and costume, and she started making these costumes for these frogs. They dressed them up and took those up as graphics for this storybook that they created together. And she took that and had it published, and it's in our community. And often she'll do storytelling for us. And so, getting to know people and creating opportunities. So we do have a couple of publisher contacts that we make available to people. We try to, connect with who can do that for our residents and make that information available. We have a memoir writers group. So that's completely resident driven. It's actually led by a lady who's now living in assisted living, and she has a scooter. She comes over to independent living to one of the meeting rooms and facilitates this memoir writing group, which probably is at least 20 people strong, and they help each other write their memoirs and get feedback, share excerpts with each other, etc. We have a newsletter, and that's completely driven by a resident board. They contribute the material, they edit it. They don't have the tech skills to format, so I do that for them. But they put it together in every other way. And then we both internally and externally. So we had actually this gentleman and another lady. Her name was Hilda, and she was also present at D-Day. She was a nurse at that time. And so they went and spoke at a local organization. And then at our Friday morning coffee program, we have people who have been architects, have worked in spiritual life. We've had people who are artists, travel the world. And so they'll come and they'll put together a presentation and share their experiences, which is another way for them to leave their legacy. And if you're really listening to all that I'm saying, not only does this make their life richer, it makes programming much easier. I'm not having to do all the work for them and entertain them. They are playing a role and driving the train behind what engagement looks like in our community, which is a benefit to me as a life engagement professional, but the greater benefit is to them. Not only are they being enriched by having these, purpose-driven roles, but they get to benefit from it, as a recipient. Okay, so we've come to the ideas exchange and Q&A portion of the presentation. So again, I'm so sorry for all the tech difficulties we've had today, but Charles, if you're still on board, I'm ready for Q&A.
I am, and if you don't mind unsharing your screen, that might help also the connection. But I wanted to thank you on behalf of myself and my team at LinkedIn, but I'm sure also the audience, Vicky, and probably thank you for three things. One is an amazing presentation. I enjoyed it at ICAA last year, and definitely enjoyed it today. Also want to thank you for the time that you're putting into this. I know that it is a lot of time. And then the third one is kind of quote unquote trooping along and just delivering the presentation regardless of your technical challenges. So thank you very much for that. We had two quick questions that I thought were interesting. Is one, when you include your residents, maybe in IL, do you share things like budgets or the money part with them?
To some degree, yes. So, with my life engagement committee, so when it comes to planning, what I give them is the role of, you tell me who you would like on campus and I'll do the follow through in terms of like the money piece. They do have a general sense of my budget. I don't tell them my entire budget, but especially for the independent living folks, because some of our events, they're not used to our events being ticketed. Some communities do that. We don't necessarily do that. So I have to tell them like, this amount of my budget is what I allocate for entertainment. So we do have there is a ceiling. So they have to be aware of that. Otherwise it makes planning really hard, because as you know, with entertainment, with groups, I think they don't always understand that a group can cost $5,000 for an hour. So,
yep.
Yes.
And then another question, which will be the final question given the time here, is we are curious to hear, what are your big projects for the year? I mean, it seems that you're very advanced in some of the aspects across these other levels of care. I'm very curious to know what excites you in the coming months.
Well, of course, as I spoke, the Challenge Child Easter egg hunt is right in front of us. So that's been a big piece of coordination. We also do something, I don't know how many of you know about the Longest Day. We do a huge event for that every year in Gainesville, Georgia. We are the poultry capital of the nation. So, of course, our mascot for everything is the chicken. Often I am that chicken. So we do something called the chicken chase every year. So we do a race on campus. We do, for the assisted and skilled, we do a run, walk, or scoot. And so we have staff come out and bring the people who are in wheelchairs. We have people in scooters that deck their scooters out, and we do a short version. And then we do a 3-mile run, walk for staff and residents who are capable of doing that. And we raise thousands of dollars. Chick-fil-A is on board, and they bring chicken minis, and we give out golden chicken trophies. And so we get everybody involved in that. That's a lot of fun. And then, throughout the year, we have a lot of stuff that's happening on campus. We do Olympics in our organization. And so that Olympics involves a lot of people. You know, we have residents that will take their, you know, whatever sport that they like to do, whether it's speed puzzling or water volleyball, and we pick out like 10 events, and we meet with 5 other of the communities that are in our region, and we travel to that community and spend a morning competing. So that takes a lot of work, and even people who aren't necessarily competing will sign up to be practice buddies for the other sports. And the years we hosted in our community, of course, there are volunteers in every aspect of that, and we always do you know, a pared down version of that Olympics for skilled and assisted, and we do an awards ceremony for them as well. So yeah, those are a few things that are on our horizon.
just a few. Well, Vicky, I want to, again, on behalf of myself, my team, and the whole audience, really thank you. We were very lucky to have you. But I think that there are people that are luckier on Earth, and these are your residents. They seem to be under very good engagement care with you. So thank you. As we wrap this webinar up, I wanted to share our contacts. So if you have any questions, you know, please feel free to reach out to Vicky. Vicky, again, thank you so much for being with us. It was awesome.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. And again, I'm glad that you wrote it through with all of the tech difficulties that I had on my end. And I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks
Absolutely.
again, Charles.
Anytime, Vicky, anytime. Thank you so much for doing this. And everyone, as we often do, I also wanted to remind everyone that we have very exciting upcoming webinars. So actually, one of them is in 2 weeks from now, and it's the power of touch, elevating the human connection. And it's going to be by somebody called Laura Ellen Christian with the AGK Training Institute, which is an amazing institute that does a lot of work, especially in the field of dementia care. And I'm pasting in the chat the registration page. The following one is also great, different than the previous one, but kind of in line with Vicky's presentation today, which is the impact of well-being on those living with dementia. And very excited to partner with Emily Connors, who works at the Eden Alternative. And then last but not least, as a reminder, we have our biggest event of the year. It's actually the 5th one that we're doing, because we started these in 2020, and that's our annual Activity Strong Virtual Summit. It's our longest event of the year. Very excited. We're working on the presentations as not as we speak, but these days, and we'll release the agenda very soon. With that, again, wanted to thank everyone. Special thank you to you, Vicky. Have a wonderful rest of the day and enjoy your new cabin. Take care, everyone.